So how does it affect, because I know you mentioned before, and I was reading your stuff, listening to
Yeah.
interviews, it affects your emotional well-being?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is once again playing with that fight or flight versus rest and digest
Got
response. I
it.
really think we're just, and I'm glad vagal nerve tone, sympathetic, parasympathetic, box breathing. Oh, the what do they call that? The intentional sigh. All of these
Mm-hmm.
things are starting to gain some popularity because they're all aiming at the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's regulating your autonomic nervous system. When these cups go on, when we increase circulation, and this is a funny thing, box breathing works, or the long exhale breathing works because we're slowing down the inhale and the exhale. We're telling our
Right.
body that our breathing is slower.
Welcome to Take Back My Brain with Laurie Hammer, where real healing starts in the brain. I'm Laurie, a functional nutritionist and mom who's walked the path from anxiety and burnout to clarity and calm. Each week, we're going to dive into brain-based tools like amino acid therapy, gut health, fasting, and faith to help you reclaim your energy, emotions, and sense of self.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. I'm Laurie Hammer, your host, and today I have with me Tom Ingegno. And I'm really excited to talk to Tom today because he has a doctorate of acupuncture and Chinese medicine for the last 25 years. And we're going to talk about cupping today. So, it's talking about some new holistic modalities that you can incorporate into your life and how they could affect you, your brain health, your overall body health, and so much more. So, I'm excited to learn more about all of these things. So, Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Lori, for having me. I'm excited to be here. I see you're doing some great work, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. I was looking on your website the other day and I'm like, oh, I wish you were close by.
you know,
I
it,
want to
it
come to your place.
it's a labor of love, and even the clinic itself, right? We've been first and foremost, we're an acupuncture clinic, so all the additional services we do in my head sound a lot like East Asian medicine, even if they're modern, right?
Mhm.
When we're talking about concepts like the whole body as one
Yeah.
unit, not just individual pieces. When we're talking about reducing systemic inflammation, when we're talking about improving circulation, all of those things have, we can target local areas and say this is where it is, but have this overall benefit to helping the whole body and the whole being, right?
Right, right. And that's where it's all key is where if you're doing something that your whole body's affected by it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean very much like nutrition, right? We don't, once it's in our system, we don't get to say where it goes where it's needed.
Right. And that's so key. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. So, acupuncture, and I'm starting out from there, but
Okay.
acupuncture, as we get treating, we're not just looking at, oh, my shoulder hurts, or oh, I have IBS, or I'm coming in for fertility or anxiety. The idea is there's this massive cascade effect when we talk about it from Western science. And what that seems to be triggered by, and this is another buzz term in our fields now, is vagal nerve tone, right?
Sure.
If we can get you out of fight or flight and put you into rest and digest, here's where all the healing happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after about 10 or 15 minutes, acupuncture starts that process. It drops you into rest and digest. What happens there? Well, all the blood vessels open up, first of all, right? So
Right.
now we're getting more blood flowing to the extremities, which may not be getting good circulation. We might be getting more blood flow to that shoulder that feels stiff, or more blood flow to that gut that is leaky, or that is, full of nutrients that we want to extract. So that's the first part. And then we see these other waves, right? Oh, we're getting more blood flow to the brain. Well, that's going to help us
Mm-hmm.
function better. Well, while all this is happening and we're in rest and digest, we start normalizing neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine. We kick out more
Mm-hmm.
oxytocin. We know now from the 90s, we start making a compound called anandamide, which is part of the endocannabinoid system,
Yep.
which looks like cannabis. But one of the benefits is relaxation. Ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. So we release this
Ah.
bliss chemical. So a lot of people come in for treatment and they're laying on the table and they leave and they go, wow, I feel a little high. And you're like, oh, you're
Hey, how
okay.
you
We didn't add
do?
anything. But oddly enough, the same thing will happen, and to varying extents, with massage and with cupping therapy, because we're triggering that whole rest and digest response. So
Yeah.
yes, we target everything. We say, okay, we're working on this tissue, we're working on this area, but we're always looking back to the whole being, right? And that's the mind and spirit too.
This is so good because if you don't do that, then you're missing so much. Like I think that's where our like modern medicine is just localized, or it's just what do I
Yeah.
say? So compartmentalized. And that's why people don't get well.
And I think that's where a lot of people fall through the cracks, right? They're too busy
Yeah.
looking at the toe. They don't see that the whole leg's kind of messed up, you
Right,
know?
right. There's no circulation going to the
Yeah,
toe,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it won't fix it.
This
Yeah.
hurts, but where else is affected? And yeah, look, I'm not knocking modern medicine. I do think there's a like a middle of the road where you need
Sure.
both, right? I think somebody described it as snakes and eagles, right? The snakes are on the ground and they're looking at the smallest little bit, and we want to know it's this tiny little thing. And if there's a switch to flip that gets rid of that tiny little thing, great.
Great.
We also need to be able to look up high at the whole scenario and say, here's what's going on globally. And that's why when you come into a practice like mine or any East Asian medicine practice, regardless of whether they're doing cupping or gua sha or acupuncture or body work, they're going to ask you a lot of questions. And you're like, well, I just told you I have headaches and you're asking me about my cycle?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, the link isn't that far, but most people go, this is down here, my head's up here.
Right.
You know, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, no, well, what's happening with your hormones? What's happening with blood flow throughout your body? We can tell so much from that. And that's so important. You know, we need to look at everybody globally, regardless of whether or not the problem is right there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I have to ask, what got you into Eastern medicine?
So
You're
so
from Baltimore. What got you into
I
Eastern
so
medicine?
I'm actually originally from Long Island.
Okay.
Um
Okay.
But
Sure.
I was one of those kids that, like, oh, you want to help people? You're going to be a doctor when you grow up, right?
Right.
And my grandfather was a pharmacist, and I just had all of these experiences growing up around Western medical practitioners and things that were like, oh, that's great, but oddly enough, when I was in my undergrad, I was at a college that like was linked to an osteopathic college. The idea was that I was going to go
Ah,
straight through, right?
uh-huh.
And in the intercession in winter break, I got a postcard in the mail from an acupuncture school. Now, in the back of my head, I kind of didn't want to go into Western medicine, right? I had these
Mhm.
experiences where I was like sitting in a doctor's office for 2 hours waiting for my appointment. I went up front. I'm like, the waiting area is full. She hasn't called anybody back. Oh, she doesn't get here until 11. I'm like, you told me I had an 8 a.m. appointment. You expect me to sit here for 3 hours?
Uh-huh.
So, little things like that. And when I was in my undergrad, I had a guy teaching me vertebrate morphology. That's everything from, starfish to humans, right?
Right.
And
Mhm.
this guy, absolute genius by every metric, right? Amazing gastrointestinal surgeon, by the way. I think he worked out of Mercy down here.
Okay.
But he told me a story. He met up with me. I'm like, hey man, I'm not getting this. Can I sit down with you? He's like, well, I don't have office hours. Let's meet in the quad. Met me, sat with me for 3 hours on a Sunday, taught me what I needed to know, and at the same time, kind of was just rapping with me, just kind of shooting the shit. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can curse here,
It's fine. Go ahead.
but within that, he told me, I said, so, like we had the same question you just asked. What got you into this? And he told me this story about him doing surgical rounds, and he was in cardiology, and they handed him a heart, and he passed out in the operating room. And I think that's when I went, yeah, I'm out. Like, I think that's when I was like, that sounds pretty serious. Maybe that's not for me, but I still wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And this postcard in the mail for an open house came my junior year of college when I was at New York Institute of Technology, 10 minutes from where I grew up. And I went to the open house and I was like, oh, yeah, this is it. And I came home with the paperwork and I signed up. Now, oddly, my parents are like, I think you're a little nuts. We'll let you sign up, but you still have to finish your undergrad.
Sure.
Now, it was funny because I'm like, no, they're going to give me a bachelor's of health science
Mm-hmm.
as the undergrad because there's no
Right.
undergrad in Oriental medicine or East Asian medicine, so they have to give you something. And she goes,
Ah.
yeah, mom and dad not so keen on that. And I'm like, Mom, I'm coming out with a master's degree
Uh-huh.
and a bachelor's. So my junior year, my second semester, I started my graduate program. I was carrying 32 credits, bartending
Wow.
2 nights a week, and I was loving every minute of it. I loved everything about the program. I loved the philosophy of balance and this global view. And it was just a joy. We still had Western science classes, so I got
Mm-hmm.
that analytical part of my brain lit up. I got
Sure.
the philosophical part of my brain, and I was learning to help people.
Right.
So it hit so many of my personal key interests that like I never looked back. Now the doctorate didn't exist when I started. I got that in 2016 because
Wow.
it really no one was getting a doctorate, and at the time I had launched my biggest clinic, which was the one we have now, and it was like, all right, I can do this. I can get the doctorate now. We're
Right.
ready for
We're
it. But
good. We're good now. Yeah.
it was great because that even hit certain interests for me. It was trying to bridge the gap more between Eastern and Western medicine. So a lot of it was on evidence-based medicine and how do we
Mhm.
analyze studies. So to be able to articulate this in a way, and I feel like East Asian medicine has kind of been this weird thing where we know there's a lot of studies, but it's still that new agey woo-woo thing. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
it's not. Asia
Yeah.
does not treat it like that. Here's some really great studies. What do you want to look at? You want to look at cardiovascular health? You want to we can do it.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
can go round for round. So to be able to articulate that to a more Western minded community, I think is a great asset. And it's not because the research wasn't there. It was because it was coming out of China and Japan and Korea, and
Yeah.
some of it wasn't in English. And we don't know about that. That's foreign to us. So not to mainstream it and water it down, but to actually present it to the audience in a way that is educated, that is
Hmm.
correct, that is doing service to, and the expression is China in China is when drinking water, remember the source. So honoring the people that came before me, honoring the people that did the research. Clearly, I'm a big, bald Italian American. Chinese medicine is not native to me, but
Correct.
I have to hold it in a high regard and pass it forward in a way that honors everybody that came before me. And I think in the West here that evidence-based approach helps quite a bit, right?
Helps a
No,
bit.
we do
Yeah.
have studies on this. I'm not just using philosophy, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who's from China and she's been practicing her Chinese medicine for like 68 years.
Yeah, it's
It's,
amazing, huh?
it's amazing. And she like knows stuff that like blows my
And
mind
those are the
away.
people I look up to. I mean,
Right?
I'm blessed
Yeah.
to have a couple of pieces of calligraphy from a guy that's 82 years old. And
Mm.
he recently, I think 5 years ago, I haven't even opened it up yet. And I'm not trying to plug him here, but this is his book, 50 Years of Practice. He's
Wow.
he's in his 60s years of practice now. But just that lineage, just the skill that you develop. Somebody asked me, what do I plan on doing when I retire? And I'm like, no, you don't
You
you
don't
don't retire
retire.
from this. You keep
Yeah.
going. Maybe I'm not going to play 4 or 5 days a week, but
Yeah.
it, this is when we get real skill. This is when we really cultivate ourselves.
Yeah. Would you mind if we dove into some like
Yeah.
dispelling some of the myths
Yeah, throw
around?
them out, ask me, and I'll do my
Yeah.
best.
Okay. So well, let's talk meridians.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people, in the United States are like, woo woo, meridians don't exist, very new agey, very this,
Yeah.
very that. Could you speak to that?
So yeah, I mean that's a reasonable skepticism, right?
Hmm.
This is an interesting thing where the meridian system actually evolved. The initial system was using moxibustion. Before we worked with metal, we had several herbs that we would burn on the skin. We
Okay.
found scrolls that predate some of our earliest Chinese acupuncture textbooks that have only 9 meridians instead of 12.
Wow.
So the idea was that there's some kind of connection, right? When they're described pre getting over here, let's say, they're looked at like rivers and pathways. So they're
Yeah.
not extremely fixed, but there's areas of communication from one area to another. Now, it's pretty interesting in my clinic, and I'm talking anecdotally now, I know that.
Yes.
But when people come in and they've been with me for a while and they've been getting treatments, I'll put a needle in one spot and they'll go, "Hey, I feel that up here. I feel that up here." Sure enough, you point to the chart and there's the line, right?
Right.
So whether or not these are substantial, whether or not they have actual ways of measuring them or mass, some people have looked at electromagnetic frequency along them.
Yep. Yep.
Some people are even citing that the organelles in the cells
Mm-hmm.
line up in a certain way along that pathway. Whether or not that's been proven, I can't say. What I can say is that we do have studies on point specificity. So, not exactly the channels, but we know when we stimulate this point, and this is something that they term now medical acupuncture, right? You
Uh-huh.
do this point, here's a physiological change, we can measure it, right? So, that's how they treat. They're not necessarily using a meridian system, but that's where those points are found on those meridians.
Right.
So, yeah, well, if the points exist, then don't the meridians exist?
One would
Is
think.
kind of
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
kind of the logic there. So it's a great question, and the answer is after 25 years, I think so. There seems to be a lot of evidence to support it anecdotally, historically, clinically. Whether or not you can cut somebody open and say this is a meridian,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's ever happening. Now, I will tell you a story about a channel that we call Sanjiao, triple heater. It's on the outside of the arm, right? And as it's described classically, it's a way of communication throughout the organs in the body, right? It's this mystical thing, helps with water, pathways, and everything. Doesn't exist. It was taught in school to me as a theoretical way of organizing, right? It's this
Okay.
energetic thing. It doesn't actually exist. Well, God, I don't remember how many years back. I think it was maybe a year or two before COVID. A surgeon discovered this new organ called the interstitium, right? The
Okay.
interstitium is this thin membrane that surrounds all the organs inside the body. And when they list the functions of that, interorgan communication, and you put it right up against Chinese medicine's concept of the triple heater, it's line for line. So
Wow.
stuff like that is extremely like, how the hell? Like,
Yes.
what did like these guys didn't have X-rays and blood tests and it's so amazing to me. I did a lecture for the Department of Defense, their hospital systems, right? So through Walter Reed. And one of the things that we were kind of talking about, and I just threw it out there, is like, here's some bizarre stuff. And when they look in quantum physics at two particles spinning, it looks like our the symbol that everybody calls a yin yang, right? And you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, well, actually, it's called the Tai Chi Supreme Ultimate. But within that, that yin and yang thing, this three-dimensional spinning two fishes, that's a physics thing. And it's like, well, that was written about 6, 7, 8,000 years ago.
Right.
That's the diagram. And how do physics, modern day physics, explains that like this is what it looks like. That's just what those two particles look like. So these things like, and I don't have an explanation for that, right? That's just more me scratching my head going, I have no idea. I don't know how to make sense of
There
that,
had
but
to be technology that
there
was
had to be
lost or something that we just,
something,
yeah.
or maybe sitting and doing qigong for several hours and sitting in meditation for several hours gives you some key insights. I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Ask me
Yeah.
in another 25 years.
Right. And there's so much about quantum physics that we do not understand. There's so much
Yeah.
beyond. There's so much beyond.
It's such a weird thing because, I've talked to a lot of people that, they want to sell you instruments that are, oh, this is quantum medicine. And you're like, okay, explain it to me.
Right.
And they can't. And it's like, but you invented the thing. Like, I can pretend I have a rocket in my backyard that's going to take me to Mars. I don't have a rocket in my backyard, but like, if you can tell me the science, no, it's quantum. Okay. And it's like, I want to believe you. But
I really do.
I do, man. I want to go there with you. I would love that. But can you give me at least a couple of principles, a couple of theories? And you can't say, well, Einstein said, well, he didn't talk about your device. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm not trying to knock anybody, but I'm like, you're making some big claims. So, I like the skepticism, and wow, that's a long answer for do meridians
No,
exist?
I love it. No, this is perfect.
But you should be skeptical. What I can say is whether or not they exist, we do have a body of evidence, and I think at last count it was over 32,000 systematic reviews in the Cochrane database on acupuncture, right? So that's not just your, double-blind placebo-controlled. The systematic reviews are collections of all the literature on a certain topic. So 32,000 of them, that's more than
That's a
we
lot.
have.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
like we are truly evidence-based, and some of that evidence goes back for thousands of years of individual case studies, but it's there.
Yeah. That's amazing. Could you dive in a little bit into acupuncture and the mechanism behind that and how that changes so
Yeah,
many things
yeah.
in your body?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, right, this fight or flight, rest and digest thing.
Yeah.
We know it happens. We don't exactly know how putting a needle into the skin causes that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we go, oh, that's the chi. That's the energy smoothing, right?
Right.
That's where we can be cheeky and lean back in on that. Now, there are some mechanical effects that we can talk about. So in Japan, an acupuncture needle is affectionately known as an artificial splinter, right? If I penetrate the surface of the skin, it doesn't matter if it's a splinter, a bee sting, a needle, a piece of glass on the beach, your body has a reaction to that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that broke my major immune system organ, my skin. Well, we better send some fresh blood there. We better send with white blood cells. We better send it with oxygen, red blood cells, antibodies,
Mm-hmm.
whatever's floating around in the blood. Now, when it gets there and it sees this tiny little needle that barely did any tissue damage, it goes, well, while we're here, let's bathe this tissue, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that explains some of the localized effect.
Sure. Sure.
Now, if we're talking about the systemic effect of like, how does this point down on the arm treat something in the shoulder or treat something in the head? We have to look at it kind of like, well, this is the C, right? We even call it the C. The torso is the C of chi and blood.
Uh-huh.
Well, it has to get down there somehow. How does it do that? Well, it opens up the rivers and then the springs and then the streams, and these are actually the terms that we use. So from the elbows and the knees down, we name them in, well, we name them towards the body, but wells, streams, or springs, streams, rivers, and then the sea. So the idea is if I want to get something from the sea down, I press here, and then we have this effect all the way from
Ah.
there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of that is this flow, this, like, we're using water terms, but we are talking about blood flow.
Mm-hmm.
In one line in our classic said, where the chi goes, the blood follows. So it's kind of, I don't want to call it a cop out, but yeah, they're intimately connected. They're a yin yang pair.
Sure. Sure. No, that makes sense. What's your craziest story that you've had in acupuncture, or at least
Some
one
of
of
the, some of
them?
them I can't tell. but yeah, I'll tell one about me. And this gets so woo woo, and I really try not to. So I when I was still in New York, I was practicing in New York for 5 years, and I had this amazing chiropractor. I was right on the Queens border, and she would come in and treat me, and I'd treat her, and we'd barter. And she goes, "Look, my mentor's coming to town. Can you not charge her? I'll square up with you." Yeah, sure, no problem, right? We're friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a barter thing going. That sounds good. She did not tell me her mentor wasn't a chiropractor. Her mentor was a psychic.
Oh no.
And I was like, okay, and
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty healthy skeptically, like
Sure.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
kick the tires on it. And this is in the early days of Google. So let me start by saying that, because somebody could look up all of this now and it's a little bit easier to
Right.
access this knowledge. So we're in the treatment room and I'm treating her, and she looks at me and she goes, a lot of people in this room. I go, okay. Like, what do you say to
What do
that,
you say
right?
to that? Like,
Just you and me,
okay,
baby.
all you and your friends.
And she goes, only two of them are mine. And I go, all right. And she goes, I know you don't believe me. She goes, but I know the chiropractor said she'd cover this. Would you be interested in bartering with me? I'll give you a reading. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? She goes, okay, the rule is when I can only do it when I get home. I have a little area set up in where I can go into my state and be able to read you better. So we set it up. And she went home. She didn't tell me about any of the people in the room with me or anything like that. It was other than that, that was a really normal treatment. So,
Normal. Sure.
I mean,
You and your audience.
like, look, oh, my shoulder hurts. Okay, great, let's go. Yeah, and first of all, let me say, I'm saying this with a smile on my face and laughing. Absolutely amazing woman. The chiropractor is an absolutely amazing person. I'm not knocking them at all.
Right.
So yeah, she makes me say I call her on the phone. She put your feet flat on the floor, take your shoes off, put your feet flat on the floor, say your name 3 times. It's like, all right, I got you. Now she's in California.
Sure.
And I'm in the basement of an apartment on Long Island. And she goes, look, so those people in the room with you are saying you're picking up other people's energy. Which is something like we even talk about that in school, right?
Right.
Look, if I'm sitting next to you and I'm like, fuck, everything's horrible, horrible, horrible. You're like, oh God, my head hurts now too.
Right.
It's just kind of like,
I mean, it's just
empathetic, whatever we want to call it, right? So she goes, you're not supposed to do that. And I go, yeah. And I'm like, this is nothing, right? This is like, I care about the people I take care of. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then she goes, no. She goes, there's a treatment you need done. And I go, okay, yeah, sure. And she goes, they're telling me, and paused. And I was like, is this dramatic effect? And she goes, something about ghosts, ghost points, 13 ghost points. Now, at the time, you could not find that on the internet.
Okay.
It is a very esoteric acupuncture treatment from one of history's legendary acupuncturist physicians, right?
Okay.
And he's so famous that if you were a nobody and you came up with something great, you would actually say he gave it to you. Whether or not he was anywhere in China living near you, he might have been dead for 500 years. Yeah, he came down on a cloud and handed me this scroll and gave it to me.
Wow.
Why? Because I'm a nobody. Nobody's going to listen to my thing. But if I say this guy gave it to me, now it has some clout. There's also, and I forgot the English word, but this idea that when people are really great, like we have tall tales, like Paul Bunyan, John Henry, those kind of things, they would do that with their physicians.
Wow.
They would give them almost these godlike properties. Like this guy can see inside his stomach, and when he eats an herb, he can tell where it goes. Right. And he gave us our first materia medica. So he knew something, or another physician supposedly switched 2 hearts. So Sun Tzu Miao is the guy that wrote the 13 Ghost Points, the Ode to the 13 Ghost Points. And he was somewhat of a god of Chinese medicine.
Okay.
So she picks out 13, which is like, well, that's a good guess, this is pretty weird. So she goes, you only know one person that you trust to do this treatment to you. The points are weird, right? They don't follow any scheme, any theoretical thing that we would use. They seem pretty random. They're not commonly used points. Okay. Some of them are very guarded. And I go, yeah, I know. She goes, the older guy, the British guy. And I'm like, yeah, my mentor, right? Like immediately I'm like, yeah, Peter. Yeah, I got him.
Yeah.
So I call him and he goes, well, that's weird. He's very, very quiet about it. Right. And he goes, okay, come over. Right. So Peter was treating out of his house. He had like a mother-daughter. So I go downstairs and he's got one room, no windows, no lights. He puts me in that one, puts all the needles in, and he goes, you cool? Yeah. Okay, cool. Some of them are painful. They're on the palms of the hands. It's through your frenulum, right? They're not happy points. And he leaves. He's got no music in the room. I'm comfortable. I'm warm, but I start feeling things. And God, I sound so crazy when I say this. I start feeling like people are waving their hands over me and
really?
Patting me on the shoulders. And I hear mumbling. And I'm like, is that him in the other room? Is that him in the other room? Right. And now a couple of the points. There's one point in the center of the tongue that you prick. He didn't do that one. There's also a point in the perineum. He didn't do that one either. So I'm counting the points going, he didn't do 13, right? No. And as I'm thinking of that point, and then I think of the perineum, like something happens. The whole room got loud. I heard rustling. I heard people moving around me. I felt people putting things in and out of my hands. 25 minutes must have gone by. He comes in. He goes, "How you doing?" I'm like, "This is weird, man." And he goes, "Yeah." And that was it. And he
Yeah, that was
walks
it.
back out. Now, he comes
Okay.
back in another 15 minutes and he takes all the needles out. And he goes, "All right, take a sec, collect yourself, come on out." Now he's sitting in his back patio. I'm colorblind. I swear the grass was greener, the sky was bluer, and I
Really?
could hear my sinuses were open. And he goes, "How was that?" I'm like, "I'm still processing it." And I didn't, now I'm telling it on a podcast. I have not told that story publicly because it's too
Wow.
weird.
Too crazy.
It's
Yeah.
too weird. But there was like about a week or two where everything was just brighter, clearer, easier. And then I probably picked up everybody's shit again and I'm back to square one. And he's passed on, so I can't ask him to treat me again.
Wow. Have you ever done that to anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I warned them. I'm like, "Look, this is about as weird as I get. And we're gonna do something weird. I can't tell you what's gonna happen. I don't know."
Yeah. Do they have a
And
similar experience?
I've heard a lot of crazy stuff. A lot of crazy stuff with it. And
Huh.
it's not something we go to that often because once again, the points are uncomfortable. It has a real esoteric use,
Yeah.
and it's one of these things where you don't want to freak people out, right? That's so foreign to
Right.
them.
Right,
and
right, right,
and
right, right.
like, it's like, if somebody said, "Hey, you want to go ghost hunting?" I'll be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." But not everybody's going to say that. So you want to meet people where they're at. And most people are like, "Hey, my back hurts." And
Yeah.
then like, "All right, let's pull some ghosts out." Like that
Yeah, why
sounds
would you
so
be doing
weird.
that? No.
Like, no, no, no.
No demonic activity
But
here.
Lori, I can't believe you got me to tell that story. I was
I
really
can't
like,
either. Wow.
that was by far the weirdest thing. I've had some other wacky stuff happen, but nothing that unexplainable.
Huh. Yeah,
You
it's
know.
amazing what our body holds and
Yeah, and I
what
know
can happen.
it could have been all a delusion. It could have been
Mhm.
some kind of altered state that I went into. I'm willing to hear all of that.
Right. Wow. I don't even know what to follow up with a question on that one.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stump you there. I didn't think it was going to get weird that quick, but it did.
It's fascinating though to me. I mean, it just tells us like our body, there's so many different layers that
Hmm, hmm.
um what I don't even say to be open to, but just like there's so many things we don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So many things that we don't know. And I think um depending on what religion you are, all those kind of things, like, that stuff sounds kind of scary. So
It is, and I think even that I in the early days when I was starting, a lot of not even going to call them good Christians, but some out there Christians were saying like you can't do acupuncture because it's the
yeah, and
devil's
I've
work.
I've heard that before. I've
And
heard a lot of
it's like,
different things. Like even I do like
why?
muscle testing and I have a laser and I've
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
do biofeedback and stuff and people are like, "Well, that's really new agey. Like why do you do that as a Christian?" And I'm like, "Well, I
Where
mean,
where
I don't find it new agey at all." It's
show
kind of
me
like
in the
people
book.
say
Show me in the book. Where
chiropractic
does it
is new
say don't do
agey.
that in the book? I mean, like, and that's kind of it, right? Because it's from Asia, it has to be foreign.
Right. And
And
instead,
it
what if there was some amazing knowledge that we lost? And then what if it's something that we need to relearn as a society so that we can actually be in tune with our bodies?
absolutely. And it's so funny to think that even in the Bible, they don't reference older cultures. They don't reference like the New Testament does it quite a bit,
Yeah.
including, guess what, Egypt. And when we talk about cupping,
Mm-hmm.
the book that talks about cupping, the oldest book that we have that
Mm-hmm.
talks about cupping, and cupping is older than this book, is the Ebers Papyrus, 1515
Oh,
BC in Egypt,
right,
right?
right.
Guess what else it talks about? Nose reconstruction. And they do it in the same way. Now, granted, they're using metal scalpels and they're using
Sure.
anesthesia. They knew that when they were grafting the skin, they had to take it from the forehead, they had to leave it connected at the bridge, fold the skin over so it would graft because it needed blood flow. to stay
Ah,
on.
yeah,
That is an advanced thing. If they took it off their
yeah,
thigh, it died, right? So they knew this, like, and we're acting like we were all primitive before modern day. And it's like they were describing surgery the way that we do it
yeah.
now.
There's so much evidence of that, like
There,
very detailed evidence. Yeah,
in that same lecture I gave to the Department of Defense where I talked about, like, look, this quantum physics thing is
yeah,
showing a yin yang. We were talking about fecal transplants. We were talking
yeah,
about stem cells coming from cord blood. We were
yeah.
talking about maggot therapy. And here I am going, I'm trying to gross these docs out. They were like, "Oh yeah, we do that at the base." I'm like, "I can't weird you guys. I'm the weird one here and I can't out weird you guys." You're like, "Oh, we did this maggot debridement after brain surgery," and they're all like chiming in, and I'm like, it was my favorite lecture because that's the only time they ever responded.
Right.
It's like, oh, you guys are integrated, like
All
you're in
right.
this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's so amazing to me, and the longer I do this, the more I'm looking at other cultures going like, no,
Yeah.
they knew things.
New things. They knew a
New
lot of things.
things.
Yeah, the more I dive into, ancient medicine and all this kind
Mhm.
of things, and these things we're bringing back, opening our minds up to. So you mentioned cupping just a little bit ago, and
Yeah,
I know we
yeah.
have a book on cupping.
Yeah.
So tell us about your book. And I don't know much about cupping, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
This is one of those ancient things that I really think deserves its time in the limelight. And so cupping is, like I said, we don't know where it came from.
Oh,
It's been,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So we think, like I mentioned, 1515 BC, the Ebers
Hmm.
Papyrus, but we're not sure. Like Hippocrates wrote a ton about it in ancient Greece. We know the Persians were doing it. So somewhere around, that Mediterranean
Iranian.
area,
Yeah.
it happened. We do know that it spread all over the world.
Wow.
They call it Ventosa in South America, and it has a long, rich history there. And we don't even know Aztecs, Incans, Mayans. They were, well, like they did it too. So we
Uh-huh.
don't know if there was this, information exchange or this kind of coevolution of this concept,
Uh-huh.
but it did make it all over the place. We know in about 300 AD, 300, 350 AD in China, a physician said, "You guys look down on this, right? This is folk medicine to you, but we really should be using it as physicians." So he was kind of like, "Get off your high horse. It's
Wow.
so clinically effective. Don't just leave it to, grandmas." Now, that being said, grandmas, the matriarchs of the family, used to be the ones that were the caretakers, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
this was done by grandmas around the world. When I was teaching
Wow.
in Manhattan at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, they had a large student body population from outside of the US. When we got to cupping, that was the number one thing somebody said to me. Grandma used to do this. Now there was
Mm.
always variations, right? They would go like, in Italy, my grandmother would put down a big coin and then she'd soak a little bit of cotton in some brandy and then light that on fire and then put the cup on top. And then somebody from Syria said, "Oh, the cups in Syria have a longer neck," and they roll up some newspaper and light one end and put it in so you wouldn't get burned, but it would still create the suction. So I better tell you what cupping is first
Yeah.
before we get
Yeah.
to that part. But cupping is basically applying anything that can hold suction to the skin, and pulls the skin up into the cup. So traditionally, yes, drinking glasses are used all the time. In fact, in Godfather Part Two, Fredo's a baby. He's on the kitchen table. Nona comes over with a little glass and puts it right on his chest.
Uh-huh.
Um, but pieces of bamboo, clay pots, buffalo horns, they were all some of the first cups, and you throw fire in them and get them to stick to the patient because there's a vacuum created as the oxygen burns.
Okay.
Now, this was so common throughout the ancient world and used for so many things, specifically pain, specifically respiratory infections,
Uh-huh.
bronchitis, pneumonia, those kind of things, digestive disorders.
Wow.
So it was done so frequently and used by so many people that it kind of fell out of practice when we kind of hit this modern age.
Okay.
And you still had shaman doing it, you still had the local village healers doing it, you still had grandmas doing it, but it was kind of looked down on because, oh, that's old and nonsense. until a bunch of modern studies came out. And then you started seeing people like Gwyneth Paltrow getting it and walking
Right.
down the red
Yeah.
carpet with that in her back. And the day after she did that, I took the sign off my office, took it to the sign shop and had them put cupping on it. Michael Phelps is from Baltimore. The day
Oh,
after
yep.
he showed up on the news, our local news affiliate was in my office talking about cupping. So, it kind of found its way back. But we also have this advantage now. If you want me to do fire cupping, that's what we do in the office. We use a torch, we use glass cups. The glass cups are easy to sterilize. The fire is the traditional way of doing it. I like it. I think it feels better. But there are plastic cups with pumps. There are silicone cups with battery operated pumps that create a vacuum now. They're all safe. You don't run the risk of having glass breaking. You don't run the risk of burning yourself or somebody else.
Yeah.
So it seemed like the perfect time where technology and research has caught up with this traditional
Yeah.
practice to write a book on cupping. I released it January of 2024, and we've been having a great time. We do great podcasts like this and kind of trying to put this back into people's hands. So I literally called the book the cupping book because I wanted it to be as on the nose
As
and direct
plain
as
as you can be.
possible.
Yeah.
And the book is not written for other practitioners. The book is not written for scholars. The book is what would grandma have taught you if she was passing this on to you?
Wow.
Because it's real practical, real quick. So we cover now I said grandma, but I talked about all the different types of modern cups you can get, the advantages and disadvantages of
Mhm.
them, the oils you can use, where to put
Wow.
them, the techniques you use. It is such a simple thing. I will have a course out at some point in time, but the course is going to be like a 3-hour online thing. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to take forever once you practice the techniques. There used to be a commercial, and it was a mechanic college, right? And then once you learn how to use the tool, it goes in your toolbox and it's yours to keep. And I maybe that's a Northeastern thing, so I don't know how many people will get
I
that
don't remember that one in
reference.
Iowa, but that's okay.
No, no, no. It was a guy in a jumpsuit in a garage. Um, Apex Tech. Wow, that's a weird flashback. But within that, like this is it, right? You learn how to use the tools. Silicone cups, plastic cups, they're like
Mhm.
20 bucks on Amazon, and you have a kit that you can clean and take care of and use for the rest of your life.
Wow.
Share that with your family, share that with your friends, and pass on that knowledge. So that's the real thing. 25 years in practice, I realized I'm not going to be able to treat billions of people, but if I
Right.
share information, even if you don't get it from my book, even if you get it from somebody that read my book and they passed it on and they passed it on, you still have a lasting impact. So the goal is to help as many people as possible, even if that's not a direct contact with me.
Right. So what does cupping do? What's the mechanism?
So yeah, this is a pretty straightforward run, right? So we create this suction. The suction pulls the skin up into the cup. The skin then pulls on the fascia, creates some space between the skin and the fascia. The fascia then pulls up, creates some space between the fascia and the muscle, and fresh blood infuses that area. It's a relatively
Ah,
closed system. So deep into the body, up to 6 inches, the blood is
wow.
increased in that area. So, yes, it does cause a little local inflammation, but in doing so, you're increasing systemic circulation throughout that area deep into the body. Now, when that cup is pulling on the skin, it does rupture those surface categories. So those capillaries rupture. So you get this initial huge influx of fresh blood.
Yeah.
But over the next few days, your body wants to break up that bilirubin, that blood that's sitting at the surface. So you get this continued increased circulation in that area, right? So
Nice.
yes, you get those hickeys, which is exactly what they are, those perfectly circular bruises, technically ecchymosis, not hematoma, but
Uh-huh.
that's nerdy. Don't worry about that. But those bruises do have a healing effect on their own as well.
Wow. And then so the goal with that increased blood flow, oxygen, all of that is
Repair
to
the tissue underneath, increase circulation to that. So, one of the things that I talk about in the book, they sell these cups that are like nesting dolls, and you
yeah,
get
yeah.
you get 12 in a pack. and it's about the size of a tennis ball. So throw them in your gym bag when you're foam rolling at the end. Stick one
Uh-huh.
on your IT, stick one on your thigh, oh, stick one on your shoulder, and do some active recover or some passive recovery because the cup is doing the work. But
Right.
while you're cooling off, while you're still at the gym, so
Mhm.
you're not sore the next day or not as sore the next day.
So does what makes this like more effective or more superior than, other things that would increase blood flow
I
and stuff?
wouldn't even say more effective or superior. I'm going to say it's ease of use
Got it.
and long-term case studies. We know this has been used for thousands and thousands of years with great effect.
Right. Right. So how does it affect? Because I know you mentioned before, and I was reading your stuff, listening to
Yeah.
interviews, it affects your emotional well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is once again playing with that fight or flight versus rest and digest
Got
response. I
it.
really think we're just, and I'm glad vagal nerve tone, sympathetic, parasympathetic, box breathing. Oh, what do they call that? The intentional sigh. All of
Mm-hmm.
these things are starting to gain some popularity because they're all aiming at the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's regulating your autonomic nervous system. When these cups go on, when we increase circulation, and this is a funny thing, box breathing works, or the long exhale breathing works because we're slowing down the inhale and the exhale. We're telling our
Right.
body that our breathing is slower. Our autonomic nervous system kind of goes, oh, you're doing one of those rest and digest functions. We might
Mm-hmm.
as well do them all. Right. So when
Mm-hmm.
we put the cups on and we start increasing blood flow, especially when we're putting them on the upper back between the shoulder blades or on the upper chest for some chest congestion, we're getting increased circulation. So
Right.
our body goes, oh, those blood vessels opened up. We must be relaxed. Now, when they come in clinic and I do the cupping, and especially if I'm doing it for musculoskeletal pain, I put them on a little, I don't want to say sadistic, but I put them on pretty tight, right?
Uh-huh.
After a couple of minutes, when we get some blood flow into that, they start to relax. You forget they're there, and people fall asleep. And they're like, "Look, that
Uh,
one went on. It was a little pinchy. I thought I wasn't going to make it." And then about 2 minutes into it, everything just relaxed, and I passed out.
mm-hmm.
So it doesn't happen all the time, but they normally leave pretty relaxed. And when that happens, neurotransmitters normalize. We get more blood flow to the
Right.
brain, all of these things that help us out emotionally.
Yeah.
If we're using traditional Chinese medicine theory, that area between the shoulder blades relates to the lungs, the heart, and the pericardium, and that's grief is the lungs,
Yeah.
joy, lack of joy is the heart and pericardium. So we put those cups there, and the heart is the ruler of emotions in Chinese medicine, so we can help regulate emotional health.
That's amazing. And you can do this at home. So you could do
Yes,
it, you and your
you
spouse could
you
do it.
you you probably need a partner if you're going to be putting them on your back.
Sure.
But yeah, yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But are there any precautions that need to be taken with
Yeah,
this?
some simple ones, and I'm going to say this and then say I've seen photos of people doing it on pregnant women. There is no research on treating pregnant women. It would be unethical to treat pregnant women with cupping, not knowing whether or not it's going to hurt the baby or the mom. So some people do it. I suggest not doing that. If somebody is a true hemophiliac, if somebody's on high levels of blood thinners, probably not the best modality for you.
Fair
We do
enough.
not cup over open wounds. We do not cup over deep vein thrombosis. We go through that in detail. Avoid those areas. Um, but in general, the difference, people often ask the difference between acupuncture and cupping. I
Mm-hmm.
say cupping is horseshoes and hand grenades, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be exact with this. We can be in an area to get the effect we want. So you don't have to sit there and pull out your anatomy and physiology textbook and go, okay, I'm on the head of this muscle. I need to be a little bit over here. You go, does it hurt there? Yes. Okay, put the cup.
Fair enough. So if your
Yeah.
shoulder hurts, put it on your shoulder.
Yeah, and feel around, you're
Yeah.
you're able to move them around pretty easily. If you only have a couple of cups, it might take a little bit longer. But leave it here for a couple of minutes, move it there, move it there, move it there. And you can jump around quite a bit.
Yeah. Can you do this on animals?
Uh Not cupping. No.
Cupping. Okay.
Yeah, maybe a hairless cat. I don't know.
I didn't know if you, yeah. Anyway.
Really, even on hairy individuals, even people with a lot of body hair,
That makes sense.
you got to use oil
Okay.
some grooming
Yeah.
clippers.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mentioned before I'm Italian. I have buzzed my chest to get a cup on here and there.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. One more question. If we're
Sure,
talking,
sure.
techniques and, modalities and stuff for the Eastern medicine, tell us about gua sha. Because, the gua sha stones, like you can buy them
Yeah.
on Amazon for like $6. Like,
Yeah. So and honestly, before they became the thing for facial stuff, they were much cheaper than $6. Maybe that'll be my third book,
there
because
you
that is
go.
another traditional technique that has once again been appropriated and renamed. And what do they call it? Soft tissue and instrument assisted soft tissue mobilization, or
Oh, very
Graston's
fancy.
technique. Yeah. And this is another one that, grannies around the world did. Coining is sometimes what it's called because they use a big coin.
Oh.
Jar lids are another favorite tool. So you don't need to buy the $45 rose quartz goop special.
Are you
Um,
sure?
I mean, do what you want. It's your money. One of my favorite tools, and this is a longtime classic in Chinese medicine, is a Chinese soup spoon, ceramic
Oh.
Chinese soup spoon. Uh, One of the reasons I like it is you can put your thumb
Uh-huh.
in the depth of the spoon and use that to scrape. So you have a
Oh.
little bit now gua sha, and it's always funny when I see people doing it on their face because they're doing a face massage with a gua sha tool. They're not doing gua sha. Gua means to scrape, sha means sand. So
Oh.
sha is the same as Shar, different dialect in Shar-Pei. Shar-Pei means
Sick.
sand skin.
Uh-huh.
So the Shar-Pei dogs have a kind of a rough coat.
Yeah.
When we're doing gua sha, there's two ways we tell the presence of this sha, this sand. One, when we scrape, we get these petechia, these little purple dots under the muscle. So when you scrape, you're supposed to make it look ugly. It looks like you've been hit with a
Oh.
cheese grater. You're not doing that on your face. Do
No.
not do that on your face. I'm going to say that again. That is not a facial technique. This is for tight muscles. This is for chest
Oh.
congestion.
Yeah.
That sha, if you move slow across the skin, you will feel little indurations, little hard spots, little grains of sand in the fascia. So when you
Oh.
slide down the back and you use a little bit of oil, you'll
Uh-huh.
feel like
Yeah.
as you go and you hit a real tight spot. And that's the fascia getting all meshed up, right? So what you're
Okay.
doing is literally ironing that out with force.
Wow.
So it can
Okay.
be done heavy or it can be done light and you just do more strokes. You'll still get the same result where the skin looks angry and red. And if you put your hand over that area, it'll be super hot and they'll say, "We got the sha out."
Oh.
And it's like
Yeah.
it'll look very intense. And if somebody has a chest infection, and this is an interesting thing. So back in the 70s, huge Chinese population in parts of California. Kid gets sick. Grandma puts some oil on the back, does the gua sha, sends him to school. Teacher sees what looks like a belt mark down the kid's
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Calls the family. Maybe the English isn't so good, and they hear, well, no, he was sick. So you beat him. Child services gets called, and it's a cultural failure because you didn't know this is something that's done. It actually
Yeah.
doesn't feel bad. I mean, you could do it very heavy and then it's rough, but you can do it very light too.
Mm-hmm.
Even people use I don't like Vapo Rub because it's petroleum based, but you can
Yeah.
use that too. You can use Tiger Balm, all of these things to kind of get some aromatics and open up the sinuses, open up the chest while you do it too for chest colds, but
Sure.
it's great for musculoskeletal soreness. And you can even with the soup spoon or some of the smaller angles of the gua sha, get into the smaller muscles between the toes, whatever's kind
Wow.
of tight. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope that was a valid
no,
explanation.
that was a
It's
completely valid explanation. I love it because I've got one of those little gua sha stones that I bought
Yeah,
for
yeah.
$6. So
You can even get them at the TJ Maxx's. I'm not trying to plug TJ Maxx, but I'm a
yeah, like they're
Maxxinista. But they're
everywhere.
everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And it's not just for your face. It's not
Not,
for
and if you are doing your face very light, do not bruise yourself.
right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Everything's about the fascia, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I think I could ask you questions for probably another couple hours, but anything you want to leave, anything you want to leave our listeners with?
No, I mean, check out the book. I'm kind of now going from podcast to more public speaking. If anybody wants me to come out and talk, I'm more than happy to. Check out my website for more information. It's charmcity.com, charmcityintegrative.com,
Yeah.
thecuppingbook.com. You can get the book anywhere books are sold. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Laurie, for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I got real weird real quick. I hope your audience appreciates that.
They're gonna love it. They're gonna love it.
I mean, why not? Have fun, get weird. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we all have those weird experiences that we can't explain.
I don't have an alien abduction story. I got a weird acupuncture treatment story.
And people will take it how they want, and that's totally fine.
Whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much
thank you for having me.
Sharing with us. It's been great. I appreciate you. I'm going to go order that book right now because I want to learn more about cupping, and I appreciate all of your education and what you're doing for the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And everyone else, thanks for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this interview with everyone you know, because everybody needs to know these basic techniques that are ancient, that we can integrate into our lives and make everything better on some level or another. And you know what? I would also love if you took a moment to leave a review about this podcast interview. I would love to hear from you. And thank each and every one of you. God bless. See you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Take Back My Brain. If today's episode helped you connect with hope or direction, I want you to follow the show, leave us a review, and share it with someone who needs it. And if you're ready to start your own healing journey, explore our courses and our coaching programs at lauriehammer.com/store. So until next time, remember, you cannot medicate away a nutrient deficiency, and healing your brain isn't just possible, it's powerful.